Joined now from Brussels by George Papa-Konstantinou, who was Greece's finance minister until last summer and is now the Minister for the Environment. In the studio are Kostas Lapavitsas, a Greek economist at London School of Oriental and African Studies, and Christian Schulz, who is an economist at Berenberg Bank. George Papa-Konstantinou, first of all, I mean, listening to all that, it's clear that many Greek people don't want the austerity. Many politicians and economists don't think it can work. So who are you doing this for?
We're doing it for the country and for its citizens, obviously. It's been an extremely tough 2 years. There's no question that people are hurting. Unemployment is at a record level. Wages and pensions have been cut. Taxes have been raised. So it's no surprise that people are looking at, in the middle of a recession, at its worst point and cannot see the exit. And what this new program is supposed to deliver, together with the reduction in the debt by about 100 billion, is to turn the page, to show that confidence can return and that we can put all this behind us and slowly but surely go back on a path of sustainable growth. Because it is very clear that we were not on such a path before.
Indeed, but you know, you've got riots in the streets. Within a couple of months you could have elections which could throw all the existing government basically out. And there are those who think that this is in effect the insincere acceptance of the impossible. You know you really can't do it.
You know, it's easy to look at the riots and say that this represents a situation. The demonstrations are, of course, an indication of how people feel. The riots themselves are done by a very small minority of extremists and plain criminals. It is very clear that at the end of 2 years of austerity, it is not easy to convince people. But the question is there an alternative to this? Is there something else that we can do?
Well, you could leave the euro. You could leave the eurozone.
Years,
sorry to interrupt, but you could leave the eurozone. That would be an alternative.
Yes, at a disastrous cost for the country and for the citizens. It is very easy for people to say that. Let me tell you, in very, very brief terms, what would have happened this morning in Greece if the parliament had voted a different way last night, if it had voted no rather than yes. This morning, by 9:30, there would be queues outside banks. By midday, the government would have had to close down the banking system and bring out the police and the army to guard the banks. And by the end of the day, Greece would be an island, unable to trade with the rest of the world, unable to pay salaries and pensions. It would be a total, unmitigated disaster. Those that think that there is a way to get out of the euro that is somehow painless, a way that does not completely shut down the banking system, are either deluding themselves or are playing a very, very dangerous game with the Greek people.
Kostas, this is the least worst option. There's all kinds of bad options, but this is the least worst, is that argument?
Not at all. I think what's happening to Greece at the moment is a disgrace. There's real despair and poverty in the country, and that's been imposed on it by its so-called allies and partners. That's the first thing that has to be said. Now, this is not going to work. It hasn't got a snowball's chance in hell of working. The country is heading towards the exit from the euro system. It's heading towards the exit, and it's heading towards bankruptcy in the worst possible way, in a chaotic way. This is what we've got in front of us, and the argument is, among many people in Greece and elsewhere, that it's the Greeks who should do that. They should take charge of their own future and effect these changes deliberately and with a plan. That's really what's in front of us.
Your reaction to that, Minister?
What I hear is a collection of slogans, but I hear no answer to the scenario which the nightmare scenario which I just painted at you. Of course Greeks should take care of themselves. Of course Greece should take its own destiny at hand. But when you have a country that year upon year was spending more than it had, that was not really producing, that got a huge external deficit, and found itself with a debt of 360 billion euro, then it is very easy to say, well, let's just forget this debt. We can't survive if we somehow by ourselves decided not to pay our creditors. We do not have at the moment a primary surplus to be able, in other words, to have more revenues than we have expenditures.
But you have...
So forgive
me for interrupting, but if you do all these good things, as you would say that you feel you have to do, by 2020, in 8 years' time, after another 8 years of austerity, your debt will still be 125% of GDP, and that in itself might not be payable.
which is about the level of Italy, of Ireland, and certainly less than of the level of Japan. 120% is too high, and hopefully we will be able to grow fast again, but on a more sustainable footing, and reduce it even faster than that. But let's remember what happened these last 2 years. In these last 2 years, we reduced the primary deficit, so that's outside the interest that is being paid, by 8 percentage points, a massive 20 billion. This is because people took serious sacrifices. Can we really throw all this out and tell them that what we did in the last 2 years to begin to have some sanity in public finances and to claw back some of the competitiveness that was lost in the last 10 years, this would just throw it out the window?
Let me bring Christian Schulz in. I mean, how is it, do you buy into the argument that this is doable? And if so, how much pain is Greece going to have to accept, given that there are many people in Greece who think they're being bullied into this by Germany, among other places?
I absolutely agree with Mr. Papakonstantinou. We should not look at Greece at this very moment in very deep recession, after 4 years of recession, and say this is the way Greece is and this is how it always will be. The Germans shouldn't do that, the ones that say at the moment that Greece might be a bottomless pit. The Greeks shouldn't do that, and the financial markets shouldn't do that. Now, if in 2020 the debt level is 120% or 125 or 115%, the level doesn't really matter. What matters is the direction that the country has been taken until then. If the trajectory of the country is towards 100%, it's a very different view that we have to take of the country than if it's the direction of 150%.
A German CDU MP today was quoted as saying, Christian von Stetten said, a Greek exit from the Eurozone would not be the end of the world, would not be the end of the world.
Well, that's a very dangerous feeling that is spreading in some parts of the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party in Germany, that the firewalls are high enough now that a Greek exit of the euro wouldn't be a problem to Europe anymore. But we doubt that this is really the case.
Kostas?
I do not know how to convey the absurdity of what is happening at the moment in Greece. Greece has had 14% contraction of GDP the last 2-3 years. It's got 21% unemployment, and this plan aims for primary surpluses of the government next year and the year after that. Greece has got no business going for primary surpluses right now. This is entirely the wrong economic policy. The people who designed this need to go back to school and do some basic economics.
But in terms of the politics of it then, with a Greek election in April, do you think that will be rejected by the Greek people? Because PASOK, as we know, are down about 12% in the polls.
I think the Greek political system in its entirety is discredited, completely discredited right now. This is the end of an era in Greece. And I don't know if people realize this, but this is where we are. PASOK, the party that's run Greece, is completely finished. The party of the right is in complete disarray because of how it's voted yesterday. I think a new political configuration is emerging in Greece, and the thing that's making all the difference is what's been happening on the ground. This is really where things are being decided at the moment, and what people want is an end to this. They want an end to this humiliation, and they want a new policy.
Let me bring in the Minister again. Mr. Papakonstantinou, I mean, in terms of the overall future of Greek democracy, is that something you worry about? I don't just mean specifically the fact that your party is very low in the opinion polls at 12%, but the whole future of Greek democracy is actually up in the air.
Look, we're paying the price of being the firefighters, and rather than people turning on the ones that put the fire in the first place, they are turning at the firefighters who are trying to do something about the situation. So, I mean, we're paying a political price. That's what politics is about. I am worried about the future of Greek democracy because I am worried about the rising of the extremes. I am worried when I listen to people like Mr. Lapavitsas, who try to convince the Greek people that it's somehow a painless way of getting rid of all the debt that is upon our country and be able to, the next day, come back to the ways as we used to keep going. In other words, by spending, but now there will be nobody willing to lend us the money to continue spending the way we were a society that was over-consuming, was buying from abroad, and did not have a productive base. We did not have a productive base, and we did not restructure our economy in time. This program is not just about austerity. It's about deep structural reform. It's about reforming the state. It's about reforming the social services. It's about reforming the tax system so that people pay and not everybody is evading taxes. This is what it's about. It is a mistake to reduce this program simply into reductions in expenditure in the public sector. This is part of it, but it's not the whole thing.
I'll tell you one thing that really infuriates Greeks right now. precisely that class of politicians and others who brought the country to this pass are now wagging their fingers at the people and telling them that they've got to get everything right. And it's exactly the same people who brought the country to this pass. It's impossible. It cannot be done by these people. Greece needs a new political, a new political alignment. It needs new political organizations. Now, no one said that getting out of the euro or defaulting on the debt, which actually the country is doing at the moment itself, is going to be easy. No one suggested that for a moment. But we're looking at a policy that's been adopted right now, which is guaranteed to end up in failure.
Guaranteed to end up in failure. Just a quick word on that, Christian Schulz.
I don't think it's guaranteed to end up in failure. I think Greece is taking the right steps. It's just it got unlucky. Last year they had an improvement. Exports orders were rising, exports were rising, but then the mistake was made to restructure Greek debt and thereby destroy all the confidence that people had been building into recovery of the country. Now, if Greece were to exit the country, we would make exactly the same mistake again and spread that mistake to other countries.
Just a final word from Mr. Papakonstantinou.
I do not want my country to become North Korea in Europe. I want my country to be a normal European country. And I think we have every possibility to do so. We have the people, we have the productive resources, and there's nothing different in the Greek DNA than that in the rest of Europe. We have had a political class that failed the country. But let's not lump everybody together, because those that tried to make amends in the last few years are being lumped together with those that created the deficits and the mess in the first place. It's much deeper than simply the fiscal situation. It's about values, it's about what kind of democracy we want, it's about representation, it's about not a clientelistic system of governance. This is what it is about. But it is certainly not about far-fetched ideas that claim that we can somehow get out of this situation without hard work and sacrifices in as just a way as possible. This is what we're about.
We'll leave it there, Minister. Thank you all very much. Thank you.